Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching and reading recently. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth. And this week we're talking a ghost book that's actually folk horror. I just want to get those question marks in there. A goth.
Yeah, it's important.
A goth superhero, a weird tale about memory, and another nasty folk horror? Two double question marks in this description, guys. There's a lot of question marks.
So many questions.
So many questions. I do want to hear about this book, though. I would love to hear it. What is it? Tell me.
So I don't remember how I found out about this one. I think maybe Stephen King had tweeted about it or something. He has like a blurb on it, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's how I found it. I'm not 100% sure because I've never read this author before. Although I think he's relatively known in the horror sphere. It's Road of Bones, the latest book by Christopher Golden.
Nope.
Does that name ring a bell?
Nope.
No. So it is a supernatural ghost-ish story set in Siberia where a small film crew is covering a ghost story about the Kolyma Highway, which is the road built on top of the bones of prisoners from Stalin's Gulag. So it's a real historical place up in Siberia. There's this long stretch of road where they had these gulags, and under Stalin, there were like 80 gulags were built along the route to supply the USSR. And hundreds of thousands of prisoners died in the midst of their labor. Siberia is one of the coldest places on the earth. And they died, and their bodies were buried where they fell and were plowed under the permafrost. So the bodies are still under this road that has been built since this happened.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. No, thank you.
No, horrible. And so the story follows this filmmaker named Teague, who is a documentary producer, and he makes like stuff for Nat Geo and Discovery and all that kind of stuff. And he loves to make the kind of spooky stuff, mostly because his sister died when he was young.
Of course.
She was like kidnapped and murdered.
Of course.
By a serial killer.
Of course.
Or something. It doesn't really feature in that much, but
a little bit of color,
he is
a little
like
bit of a splash of trauma in the background.
Just a splash. Yeah, so like he's trying to like find some evidence of the supernatural to, I guess, maybe I don't know. It's not, that part is the weakest part of the book, but he and his best friend, who also finances a lot of his stuff and tends to his stuff is either like really hit or really miss, and so he owes a lot of people a lot of money, and he's like, this sounds like a great story for a documentary. Brings his best friend along who is helping pay for it. Gets this translator and they're on their way up the road. And eventually they arrive in this this town, and it's empty. It's completely like the doors are wide open. People have just like left. And there's this 9-year-old girl, and she's the only one there. And then all of a sudden, like, ghostly wolves start like descending upon them. And there's this shaman that they call the Parne. And I don't know how to spell it because I'm listening to this book, so I'm not 100% sure how to spell that creature's name. So I couldn't like look it up and figure out what is going on with if this is like a real, folkloric belief or not. But it's basically a chase story where they're being chased by these wolves that are supernaturally keeping up with them as they try to escape this town and escape the Road of Bones.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's paced really well. Like, it just is like, I'm reading this and I'm like, I could see this be a movie. Because it's very cinematic.
It's like a bomb-ass found footage movie.
And I was kind of excited about that, although like the filming aspect of it drops like almost immediately because they're literally like, oh shit, and on the run.
Fair.
But like I could see them turn this into kind of a found footage, and that'd be kind of interesting. But it is literally like a chase film where they're trying to keep ahead of these wolves that are chasing them from this town for some bizarre reason that is eventually uncovered.
Did you finish it?
I am like 20 minutes from the end. I had to I wanted to sit out in my car and listen to it in the parking lot, but I just, I'm about 20 minutes. I'm 20 minutes from the end, but like, it's good.
Fuck yeah. That sounds good as hell.
It's pretty intense.
Cool.
And it's paced pretty damn well.
Fuck yeah.
And it's surprisingly vicious.
Cool.
Like, it's not afraid of maiming and killing people.
Sweet. Love that.
So yeah, Road of Bones by Christopher Golden.
Ooh.
I think I recommend it.
Sick.
And I want them to make a movie of it.
That sounds like something they'd make a movie out of like pretty quickly.
Yeah, it easy. I mean, it just makes itself, I think. The only thing is that there's a lot of like the supernatural wolves, and eventually there's like antler men. There's this really crazy scene in the car where something happens and they're trapped in this car with something. And while they're like racing down the Kalima Highway on the snow, going 85 miles an hour through like snowy permafrost, and it's like there's some really really cool things.
You were saying that, and Misu started licking my hand, and I was just like, "This is very weird combination of things happening to me at this current moment." Yeah, that sounds fucking incredible. I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah, and audiobook fans, the narrator is really good. He is really good.
I want to try more.
I'm usually hit or miss with him.
I want to try more audiobooks. Are you Audible? Do you just use Audible?
Mm-hmm. I do, yeah. Because I feel like it's like $14.99 a month. Boy, this is not a sponsored commercial, but it's like $14.99 a month, and you get a credit a month. So like regular audiobook is usually somewhere between $15 and $30, depending on the author. So yeah, I think it's a good deal. I like it.
Cool.
Okay, so before we do talk about the goth superhero, I want to hear about this weird tale about memory.
Sorry, Steve was just like beatboxing to himself. What are you doing? It's like, what
I wish we could get that on.
Jesus Christ. But I think it's because he's playing Elden Ring. I think he's doing something to the TV about Elden Ring. But this.
So if we start to hear "fuck," we'll know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least that's what I do.
Constantly. It's hilarious. I did get summoned into the room the other day when he found the Turtle Pope, so that was very exciting.
The Turtle Pope! Yeah, playing that game is a bunch of like me going, oh no, because I'm finding something horrific, or going, fuck me, or some.
What Steve? Before I came in here, Steve like found these two guys, like these giant men with like sword hands on wheels that look kind of. So he was like, oh no, this is bad. And then he also found fire slugs, and I was very excited about the fire slugs.
Ooh.
Anyway,
fire slugs are cool.
This movie was a weird movie about memory. I watched the movie Ultrasound. That is out, I believe, this week. It's directed by Rob Schroeder, and this is his feature film debut. And this one, like, goes on my radar a little bit, and then someone, I got asked to review it, and so I watched it last night, and it's like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, but with a weird conspiracy theory spin to it about trauma. And it's quite interesting. I think it's a little too slow at parts. It's like very good. It's got that very like cute, slow vibe of like trying to make these like very big statements about like people and relationships. And it's pretty successful. There's just a couple parts to it that feel like they were trying a little bit too hard to crimp on the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind vibe.
Okay.
Just in terms of like certain characters having certain kinds of relationships, but regardless, it all comes together into this like very weird story that it starts off very asynchronous, and you're like, who the fuck is that? Who is this? Why is this happening? And then it all like comes together into a really bizarre puzzle, like into this really weird scenario that is like not realistic. It's like the kind of sci-fi where it almost feels like it could happen right now. So it's very cool lo-fi sci-fi. And the more I think about it, the more I really enjoyed it. I think it is very much in that vein of like the Michel Gondry kind of like more indie sci-fi, but it's really quite interesting. And I really enjoyed it.
Brita Wool is in it.
Yes. Yes.
I love her. She was in Mr. Mercedes and Unreal and Mass.
Oh yeah. It's very hard to describe the plot of this movie because like what it starts off as is not even remotely what it becomes. Because it starts off with a guy coming in someone's house after he has a car accident. And then the guy, it's like a husband and wife, and the husband is like an old dude, the wife is a younger woman, and they have this very weird, intensely uncomfortable conversation. And then the guy who came into the house from the car accident and the wife end up having sex, and then you're like, what the fuck is this? And then it changes setting and characters completely for a hot sec. It's just like one of those wild experiences where you kind of have to buckle in and get ready to know nothing for the first half, and then kind of have it come together finally. It's a very much like go along for the ride kind of movie. Like trust the process. Like you're confused now, but you're meant to be confused. I haven't seen one of those in a while, so it was actually kind of fun. So cool. If you're like into that kind of not cute, I keep saying cute, but like lo-fi emotional kind of films, I think this one, you should definitely check this one out. I believe it is out on VOD on Friday. But let me triple check. And then Vince from one of the shitty guys from Mad Men's in it too.
Yeah, Vincent Kartheiser.
Yes,
I don't know how to say his last name. Kartheiser.
Fancy last name. Yes. Yeah, Ultrasound is on VOD as of the publication of this episode. So I recommend checking it out. It is low. It's like conspiracy, low stakes weirdness that I had a good time with. And it fucks with your head. Sweet. And it fucks with your head about the concept of memory and what people can make you think actually happened in your life and the construction of memory. It fucked me up a little bit in terms of like what people can convince you of was real and what's not. And that'll fuck with your head a little bit. So be prepared.
Sweet.
Yeah. But we both saw a little something. We also saw something called The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves.
This little indie film.
Little indie feature called The Batman.
Barely opened. I don't think anyone knows about it.
Starring this brand new guy on the scene, Robert Pattinson, as the titular Batman.
Titular goth boy.
The titular goth boy. Terry, what did you think of the newest Batman movie? And also, what is your relationship like with Batman? Are you a Batman person? Do you care about Batman? Kind of like, yeah. What's the vibes? I
love Batman.
Okay. Me too. I fucking love Batman.
I love him so much. I have loved him ever since. I mean, I was familiar with the comics. I was familiar with the TV show, the like 60s TV show, because my dad would talk about it. But it wasn't until like Tim Burton's Batman that he became like a fixture in my life. Okay. Grew up on the animated series, had those toys, had that animated series, Batmobile, loved it, loved all of it.
Is so good.
So good. Lost a little bit of interest in the late 90s when they went a little too camp, but I'm curious to like reappraise them now that like I appreciate camp instead of being like a moody teenager watching these going, this isn't Tim Burton, meh. Like I'm wondering if like my gay camp sensibilities will appreciate what Schumacher did.
Mm-hmm.
There's Misu. Misu has thoughts.
Hey.
It's like, tag me and boss.
Babes, the door is open. Like, I cracked it so this wouldn't happen. She just wanted me to pet her.
Playing Elden Ring. What are you doing? Hey. Come on. I got time for this shit. There's no pause button.
I know that's right. There's no fucking pause button.
Playing Elden Ring. What the fuck? Thank you for your sacrifice.
And then I got renewed interest with Christopher Nolan. I know that like it goes through a cycle of people being like, "Yeah, those movies are great," and "Oh, those movies are too edgelord" or whatever. But I love those movies. And then lost interest with Zack Snyder.
Similar here.
Yeah.
So sorry. I've actually read a lot of Batman comics though. Batman's my favorite because Batman is just like a dude. Like, I never really got into Marvel or Superman. I don't know why. I just wasn't as into, like, that kind of stuff. But with Batman, I feel like, because, and also, like, his comics were always kind of grimier and more horror-y and creepier. And I liked that. Like, I liked the setting of Gotham a lot more than a lot of the other comic books. Like, they were usually dark and weird and, like, had serial killers as, like, it's, like, weird, spooky kid shit. But I loved...
And this movie leans into that.
And I want to talk about that because I was very excited because this movie does lean into a lot of those, like, The Long Halloween and Hush, like, those graphic novels that are, like, these one-off, kind of scarier, creepier, good Gotham stories. Because I liked the Nolan Batman. Like, I saw them all at midnight. Like, I was standing in line when that was still a thing. And, like, I love the Tim Burton one. I love the animated series. I just think Batman is, like, the coolest guy. Like, he's a rich guy who, like, is sad. And that's my type. So he's always my favorite. And so with this one, I was like, I did not really care Zack Snyder's I'm sorry, Ben Affleck. It didn't work. It didn't work for me. It didn't. And I didn't like it at all. And I was very skeptical.
Martha!
Oh, God. Like... Ugh. And so I was skeptical of this one. I will admit it. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, another fucking Batman? This might be my favorite Batman. Like, my favorite contemporary of, like, the last, like, decade or so Batman. I think this might be my favorite.
You know, I was skeptical about that 3-hour runtime, girl.
I'm still a little skeptical of the 3 hour.
It could have been 30 minutes or more shorter. Let's be real.
No, 100%. There were some shots where I was like, babes, I know you're trying to be artsy, but like, it's not the moment. It's not the moment. Like, let's cut out the long tracking shot of him walking. Like, we gotta go.
But I'm not mad at you saying that because I agree. I think this. Okay, listen. Batman Returns is the best Batman movie. I'm sorry, hands down. Batman Returns is my favorite Batman movie.
Help! Why am I forgetting what this is?
Michelle Pfeiffer, Catwoman.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I get them all mixed.
Danny DeVito, Penguin.
I get them all mixed up of like which one is which in terms of like which villains are in which. Yes.
That one is my favorite. It still remains my favorite. Even after this movie, it remains my favorite. However, I do think that of like as you said, contemporary ones, this one probably is edging out The Dark Knight, which I still think is a fantastic movie.
It's a fantastic movie. Like whatever the fuck everyone says, it's a well-made fucking superhero movie, and I really enjoy it. Like, so.
But I think this one takes elements of that in terms of like grounding it, making it very realistic, making it, but having like that element of horror fantasy aspect. Because let's be honest, as much as they want to try to say that, you know, Riddler is pulling from like the Zodiac Killer and whatnot, I mean, he is his own creation that is definitely superhero villain.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Oh, and that was what, again, like,
just like in the same way that the Joker is.
Yeah.
Just the same way that the Joker was in The Dark Knight.
Well, exactly. And I feel like what I liked a lot about this movie too was that I think I was telling Steve that it kind of sits in the middle between Nolan and Burton. That it's not trying to be super campy and comic booky, but it's also not trying to be super self-serious and make it feel like this isn't a comic book, like this is a serious like much more serious thing. It exists in this happy middle ground where like it takes, like you said, borrows from those two and creates this like neo-noir weirdness that feels
the
like
noir,
a comic.
the noir of it.
Yeah, like it's so like this weird neo-noir thing that knows it's a comic book but also doesn't want to go full comic book. And I love that it kind of sits in this area really well, because you have like you have the Riddler with the like, despite him looking kind of like the Zodiac, he has duct tape and he giggles on the internet. Like he is very much like a comic book villain pulled from like the Zodiac inspiration. You have the thumb drive pun that is the like
oh my god,
like these moments of comedy that don't take you out of it necessarily, but like I remind you that you are in like a very cartoonish world without it needing to be over the top. And I think that's really clever, and how they kind of signal that throughout. I love Robert Pattinson as Batman, because he plays Batman as this brooding little baby who's like just very sad and like only wears black t-shirts and sweatpants and has to wear sunglasses when it's like light outside because his eyes hurt. And it's like the most cartoonish. It is such a cartoonish Batman in the best way, and I love it so much because it works. Like I want my Batman like a little baby bitch. I don't want Playboy Bruce Wayne right now. I had that. We had Playboy Bruce Wayne. I respect Playboy Bruce Wayne, but I also want little emo 30-year-old Bruce Wayne who's just real depressed and is not on any medication, and he's using his money to buy motorcycles and suits. It's incredible. I would date this guy. It's really embarrassing. I could fix him.
Two things that popped in my head as you were talking. The first is that talking about when I was watching this movie and Robert Pattinson shows up in Bruce Wayne, which, by the way, for a movie called The Batman, kudos for actually making him be like 90% Batman and maybe 10% Bruce Wayne. Love that. But when he shows up and his without the Batman stuff, all I could think of was like, "Dear diary, mood, apathetic. My life is spiraling downward." You know, it's like the emo kid song.
I'm an emo
that is immediately
kid.
when I started like.
Nonconformist as can be. You be nonconformist too if you look just like me. I'm sorry.
That is immediately what I was like when he shows him and he still has the smudges on. I'm like, oh my god, this is what emo kid is totally about. The other thing I had that kind of made me, it's a personal giggle, is that anytime a movie like embraces noir, I always want to shout, "It goes straight to the top," because like that is how the mystery goes in noir. It's like it starts off with this small little thing and it goes, "No, the conspiracy goes straight to the top." And so I wanted to shout that because there's a part where he's like, "This is bigger than you ever can imagine." And I'm like, yes! Noir! It goes to the top!
It's the best, especially at the beginning where fucking Batman has like, "Gotham, it's a shit stain."
I was drinking my hard Mountain Dew at that point, so thank you for that.
I take notes in my journal every day.
Oh my god.
So incredibly like Rorschach from Watchmen, and like I love it because they know what they're doing with it, and it's so good. Yeah. And I love that. Like Steve and I saw this when we were on our little weekend vacation, and we looked at each other like 5 minutes and we're like, "This fucks. Like this movie's fucking good."
Yeah.
And it was great. I was so happy. Like nothing makes me happier than a movie proving my dumb ass wrong. Please be better than I expect. I love it. Kick my ass, because that means I had a great time.
Same. Yeah. And again, love the horror aspects of it. Love the from the very beginning when like the mayor is walking in his room and then all of a sudden he appeared, like Riddler appears behind him. I'm like, give me this horror aspect. I love this. This is what I want more of in my Batman stuff. It brings me back again to the Tim Burton stuff that took like humor and took gothic architecture and married it with some elements of horror. Like the Penguin in the original one in Batman Returns is horror. Like it is all about that horror aspect. And I feel like that's kind of been missing as the series progressed, and I love that this one brought that back for sure.
Well, and like they almost had it with Scarecrow, because I loved Scarecrow in Batman.
Batman Begins, yeah. That's
but
true.
They didn't lead into it as much as I wish they had, because I remember being disappointed that it wasn't as scary. But I agree, because at the fucking beginning of Batman starts off like Halloween. You are seeing through the eyes of the killer who is observing his prey. And like, there's so many things like that are adopted throughout this movie in terms of those horror aesthetics, the way they use shadow to have either Riddler or Batman like coming out of the shadow really slowly in a really cool way. Like, your eyes are adjusting and you see him, and like incredible use of like playing with darkness and monster, like the way you think of a monster appearing. And then of course, like, we've seen a lot of these comparisons, but it's like a David Fincher movie. It's like Seven. It's Seven in the Batman world, which
I really wanted to go watch. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You get to see Batman as a detective, really. Because we don't really see. You know what I mean? Like, we usually see him using cool tools and, like, beating up bad guys. But here, like, he was actually solving crimes. Like you said, I think you're going to say, I wanted to watch Seven after this. Because, like, it feels like it. And that's what Riddler feels like. He feels like John Doe.
Yeah. Loved it. And, really enjoyed it.
Jigsaw traps on people's heads. Like, it was creepy. Like, it was a genuinely creepy, like, borderline disturbing movie at parts, which is why when there was, like, a little kid in the movie theater where I saw it, I was like, oh, no. This is not for children. But, yeah.
Come back in 10 years, kid. We'll have you on Scarred for Life.
My mom took me to see the Batman. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I did, too. Very much so.
Hell yeah. Good job, Matt Reeves.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this movie that is in the Folk Horror Collection, is on the Folk Horror Collection on Shudder, and let's discuss whether we think this is folk horror. What did we watch, Mary Beth?
So we watched Clearcut, which is a 1991 film directed by, how do you say this guy's name? Ryszard Bugaszki? I believe he's a Polish director. I think it's Ryszard Bugaszki. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Polish is incredibly hard. But 1991 film he directed about a lawyer who is trying to protect Native American land from being clear cut, which is basically all the trees cut down where they are cutting down to make a new mill. And this lawyer is trying to protect the land. He fails. And then an indigenous militant, as described here, basically kidnaps him and another logging mill manager and basically like tortures them to prove to them what they're doing is bad and getting them to stop what they're doing. It's fucked.
It's a nasty little film, I have to say.
It's a lot. I will like straight out say I'm not entirely sure why it's in folk horror. Like, I think I can kind of see why, but I don't think that it, like, the reasoning that I'm thinking of doesn't make a lot of sense, because this is not a supernatural movie. This is someone who is basically referencing his history and like his ancestors' history as like reference points for the way he tortures or treats these guys, but there isn't anything supernatural. So I think there's something interesting to be grounded in, like, it's an indigenous like kind of horror, maybe, but it's not really folk horror in the way that we think about it, I guess.
Yes. There were parts of me that kind of wonder, because the indigenous activist / as INB calls militant activist, played by Graham Greene, brings a very chaotic energy to the role. He's like walking chaos, where you don't quite know if what he's saying is real or if it's fake. You don't know if he's like going to really just go there. He's someone that you'll wake up and he is just, as he says, debarking someone's leg by skinning his leg. I feel like there are moments in this where I almost thought he was like a personification of the Woods' anger of being like killed, and I'm wondering if that might be kind of where maybe the folk horror aspect is. I don't necessarily think that he is, because there's a point in this where I actually thought that like by the end of it he would be revealed to have not existed at all, but people have seen him in this movie. Like, people recognize that he is there, because I honestly thought that he was like, by the end of it was going to be that the people thought that this the white lawyer was the one that did it all, because he didn't exist. That's how I thought this movie was going to end. It doesn't quite do that, although it does a little bit in a way, because he does get arrested by the end of the movie. But I wonder, there's part of me that kind of thinks that maybe there's that hint that Graham Greene's character, Arthur, is like a nature's vengeance in a way that is in line with what some folk horror has done, where it's like people trying to civilize nature. Nature says, fuck you, and fights back in a way.
Okay. All right.
If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense.
It's definitely not like a lot of folk horror that we've seen so far, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's like much more grounded in like realism in terms of it's about very real issues of white people stealing indigenous land for their own purposes and not understanding the effects of that. And Arthur is basically this figure who exists to be like, you think you're helping, but you're not. Like he kidnaps the logging mill manager who's basically tearing down the trees to make room for this mill.
Which, by the way, I shouted when I was watching this. That's Colonel Saul Tyke. He's from Battlestar Galactica, the miniseries. And my other thought was like, has he always been old? Because this was from 1991, and first of all, he looks older in this than he does in Battlestar Galactica from 2004. But like that is my immediate thought was like, I know you. You're from Battlestar Galactica because I'm a giant nerd. Carry on.
Incredible. Thank you.
Kidnaps him and the lawyer.
Kidnaps him and the lawyer, and like he sort of when he's talking, he is constantly like trying to educate, which I think like threateningly educate in a way that I think I was grappling a lot with this movie because it has a lot to do with like a very angry indigenous person inflicting a lot of violence on people. And, you hear that and it's not directed by an indigenous person. So, it kind of like raises a lot of questions about portraying this kind of anger in this way. But the more I watched it, I think there's still issues with it. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's trying to say that like, there's even like explicitly moments where they're like, well, when you're treated so violently and so aggressively and punished for who you are for so long, that's how you learn to fight back, is with that same level of cruelty. In terms of like, he's always talking like, oh yeah, like white people would cut off Native American women's breasts and throw them around like basketballs, like as he's performing this torture. And he's like constantly trying to be a voice. It's so interesting because like I feel like he's constantly trying to like alert these guys of what horrible things have happened and like why things are happening while he is doing those horrible things as like a means to kind of showcase and justify this kind of rage and see it not just as evil but as an unfortunate kind of like chain of events that happens when you perform these kind of colonial atrocities on an entire fucking race of human beings. It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
It's very fucked up. I was thinking. So there's two lines of dialogue in this movie where the white lawyer is telling the indigenous man, "Violence will accomplish nothing," and Arthur responds, "Now just who are you lying to?" And I think that kind of cuts to the heart of what this movie might be exploring, where it's like you have a white person telling this person of color saying, "Don't do that. That is bad." And it's like, excuse me, do you not see what you're doing as the same thing? And so there's that kind of, I thought that was kind of the most interesting aspect of this movie for me, was that dialogue. And I feel, because I was wondering, I was like, is this movie vilifying Arthur? And I didn't see it that way.
So neither did I. And because I didn't either, because spoilers, at the end, he isn't killed by anybody. He actually kills himself, which I think is a huge point. It's not, he isn't, killed by a cop, or like a white guy doesn't kill him to get revenge. Like he willingly takes his own life in a way that I think illustrates how they're trying not to make him the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, and having that kind of death for him and having it be by his own hands, it feels less like he was someone who needed to be punished and more like he was going through his own arc of revenge and vengeance, and this is how it was naturally going to end for him, like, because he's so at peace with it. and again shows this like horrible cycle that colonial shit leads to with him. And like, I was glad because I think, you know, watching this at the beginning, you're like, oh boy, he's going to be like a crazy like Indian dude and they're all going to make him like the bad guy. But I think it really does make everybody the bad guy.
Violence begets violence is kind of, I think, the...
Violence begets violence. Like, no matter what you think, how good your intentions are, like, if you're not part of this community, you don't really know what you're doing. Like, with the white lawyer. And, like, what also is really depressing is how this was in 1991, and I didn't know about this stuff. And, like, this shit's been happening. This isn't, like, a new thing that people are trying to protect their lands and trying to prevent the climate crisis. Like, this has been going on forever. Like, indigenous people have been fighting for their land for so long and have been in these have been living in these conditions for centuries. So like, it's fucked.
Yeah.
And like, I am very much the kind of person watching these movies. It's like, I can't fucking blame that guy for wanting to skin that guy's leg. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, violence isn't the answer, but I can't fucking be mad at somebody for like, after shouldering centuries of trauma, like trying to find a way to get justice and some semblance of justice for these like centuries of trauma. Like, I think it's an interesting movie that looks at that as someone trying to like somehow address all of the pain and can only do it in such a small way. Like, it's, oh God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's very rough
really
in
good.
spots,
it's just
though.
fucked. It's just fucked. And you watch him like cauterize a wound and really just tear the skin off of a man's leg.
Yeah.
I wish Graham Greene had more leads though, like more leading roles, because he was fucking incredible in this movie.
He brought so much charisma to this role. He just like, he was electrifying every moment he was on screen. I loved him in this.
Like, why is he not? Again, just this made me even more upset that he's always like like nowadays, like the elder indigenous person who like has 2 seconds on screen, when it's like, this is a person who like is a fucking actor. Like,
you mean sort of like in Antlers, where he gives
literally
like,
exactly what I'm referencing, is he's in it for 2 seconds to explain to the white people
what's going on, and then vanishes into the mist. Yeah.
And like this, like, Jesus Christ, like, how did this? I don't know. I know why racism, but like, he's incredible, and like, he should be cast as like a leading guy regardless of if they need to be an indigenous like character. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he got pigeonholed, unfortunately. Yeah. But he's really good. Like, he's fucking good.
He really is. Yeah. So did you like the movie?
I did. It was not what I was expecting at all.
Me neither.
Because I didn't yeah, but I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I watched it because I think it's also an important piece of like indigenous filmmaking, not like filmmaking, but like kind of looking at how those issues are represented on screen in different ways. Because I feel like we don't see that a lot as often. So yeah. I think it's much more especially from 1991, a much more complex kind of look at those issues in a way that I don't think we were getting.
I agree.
Yeah. Why was he not? Of course, he was in fucking Twilight New Moon. I forgot that he was in that. I think he's the grandpa in the fucking wheelchair. God damn it. Anyway, so Terry, what are we talking about next week on next week's Little Cuts?
So next week we are taking a very brief break from Full Core because we are both watching a number of movies from South by Southwest this weekend. So we will be back next week with a full rundown of what we've seen so far. I'm looking forward to it.
Super excited. I cannot believe South by Southwest is here. Holy shit. What's happening?
I'm excited for the found footage Evil Dead-ish movie, Deadstream, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah. Deadstream. Yeah, I'm very stoked for that one. And I'm actually going to be on the ground at the Unnamed Footage Festival in San Francisco, guys. If anyone is in the area and is going, I'll be there. So come watch found footage with me and come chat with me and get a beer if you're around.
Okay, but who are we talking to on Monday, Mary Beth?
On Monday, we are chatting with Brother Ghoulish himself, Ryan Kinney, and we are chatting Tales from the Hood.
A great, great movie.
It's so good.
Good
I
conversation.
finally got to see it, so
and
yes, very
Brother
much
Ghoulish,
so.
Ryan, he's a blast. He is so funny. I love him. He's so great.
He's hysterical. Follow him on TikTok, guys. His TikToks are the funniest shit I've ever seen.
It really is.
I routinely send them to Terry. But listeners, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Did you watch a film or read a book that we talked about this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should cover? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out directly to us on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to keep the conversation going. That's the wrong line. I don't know why I'm reading that. And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast at Scarred Podcast. Jesus.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And remember that Mary Beth is giving out found footage recommendations if you leave us a review on iTunes. So go do that. It takes like 2 seconds. So why aren't you doing that?
Do
TH.
Do it. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there. But most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time, where's the stop button?
Brain.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.